We have a Coppola questions before we move on.
I have quite a few questions here. First one is the film only set in 1981 to set up the threat of AIDS? I mean,
I wondered why either, like, it could have worked just as well being in 2002, I thought. Like, comes home from Iraq and is, doing the same thing. Unless I was like, was prostitution legal or more prevalent? Maybe it was more prevalent back then. That's why.
Yeah.
But apparently it's just because Cage liked the 80s, so.
Yeah, Cage knew the 80s, didn't know the 60s. That's it.
Yeah.
It's always a worse answer when you know the actual answer.
Right. Because I remember thinking, like, when you set it as a period piece, even if you set it in the 80s, like, it makes it harder to film because you're going to have to film around everything else. But for a movie on a budget, that seems like a weird choice.
Bad thought process on a $4 million budget to set it in the 80s. But then if you never showed the outside, basically, the whole thing's set in one house. I don't know.
Yeah. Or in a random ass barn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why did Jewel lie to Sonny about the arrangement with the bondsman? Felt like that was kind of like, I guess to make it to where Jewel didn't fall for him, or because she says something
Carol
about like,
for him.
that Carol wouldn't fall for him because Jewel, I guess. But like she says something about like, I trained him to like make every woman feel like they were the most special person in the world. So you're not special to him. He doesn't give a shit about you. But then why the bondsman thing? I don't know. It's like, because she never had to do that before. Maybe just to get her out of the house.
I think it's just I think that's part of it. Like, you do what I tell you, and also don't get too close to my son because you're still a whore, and he doesn't. He don't make it. She doesn't want them getting together because it could drive him out of the life. If he's got someone he cares about other than his mom, it's going to make him want to rethink his life.
Especially at this point, because he was adamant that he was going to get out of the life, and I think maybe she wanted to make sure that this stopped him from doing that. Just for my own clarification, Jewel 100% had sex with Sonny as a kid, right?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No,
How else did he get trained?
She had
whores
come in and have sex with him.
Like she gave him, instructional pointers and stuff, but
she was
actual
checking him out the whole time, and
she might have watched him with the other girls, but I don't think she
definitely had a hand on his ass showing him how to pump. But I don't think they ever had sex.
No.
Oh my God. Do you think Sonny went to school at all? I mean, he obviously went long enough to get that spelling bee trophy, but
he would have had to have a diploma to join the military even back in the 80s.
Really? GED at least.
He would have had some. He would have had to have some kind of diploma. Yeah.
So he did go to school. That's why, I thought maybe that played into his naivety a little bit of like,
maybe he was homeschooled.
That's what I was thinking. He was homeschooled more than one subject.
Either way, I would imagine he did not have a life outside of that house. So go to school, you come home. Like you don't have friends, you don't have a social life. So I think that was most likely the case.
Yeah. Why did Sonny need the real police uniform? Couldn't just go to a costume shop?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that part of it?
I think it was just part of it. Yeah. Like
she really wanted to make it. Yeah.
Or it was part of the request, maybe. Like
that's what I was thinking.
She wanted it to be a real, as authentic as possible.
This was.
You got a friggin' nightstick.
Yeah, that's true. This is a job that he basically set up himself because he called Maddie. The other madam. This was without any interference from Jewel. I guess because he didn't want Jewel to know that he was working again at that point. I just don't couldn't have just gotten a costume. Why do you need a real cop's uniform for that? I guess for the nightstick. I mean, that makes the most sense. Ugh.
That poor guy.
We asked this in the moment, but Did the old lady just short him $100 so he would smash some shit up because it was a kink? Or
I don't think
is
so.
that his genuine reaction? Because he says, I'm working my way through college and I can't even get paid from old ladies. So it felt like he was acting in that moment. And then he's like, gets in the car and freaks out, maybe because he felt bad about what he just did. I don't know, man. It's very confusing.
I guess it could be ambiguous on purpose, just to you figure it out. I assumed it was genuine, and he was just saying that so it sounded better to her. Like,
he's trying to justify his behavior because I don't think she would have called him a whore if it was part of her kink.
Yeah, I mean that could be part of the kink too.
I love that shot while he's breaking shit of her and her husband over the fireplace, like looking over this whole scene as it goes
because
down.
I also think, like, why would she want him to break stuff if she's trying to keep it from her husband? Like, she's got to explain why their TV's broken and their curtains got ripped down.
She apparently is an acting coach in New Orleans.
Really?
All right.
And I felt like their whore was really great. Most everybody in the movie, aside from like the principal cast, were New Orleans based actors that they were able to find. Seems like that happens a lot. We talked about it on our Ghostwriter Spirit of Vengeance episode, where it's like most of the people that aren't the main people on set are locally sourced and hired. So like when they were in Romania, I was one completely different crew. And then when they moved over to Turkey, they had to have a completely different crew there, local crew. So we asked this one for sure in the moment, but like, did Sonny just go to Acid Yellow to beat somebody up, or was he actually going there to have sex with somebody? Was he I just don't get it. I mean, we talked about this a bunch in the moment, but feels like under a better director, we would have had a more clear-cut understanding of what was happening there. But he also said that this was, he had over 2 hours, like 2.5 hours at one point, cut it down to 60 minutes, and then started adding things back into it. So I got to wonder if maybe something was left on the cutting room floor that explained the relationship here and maybe why he decided to go there.
Yeah. Maybe there was a scene with Acid Yellow previously to establish this stuff.
Like, you ever want to come over to my, maybe he disrespected Jewel or something, and he was like, I want to show this asshole who's boss, or I don't know. Yeah, it's just very confusing. In the reality that the film puts us in, I don't understand exactly why Sonny did what he did. Why would Troy want the car back to go to Mexico?
Yeah, it seemed like a weird detail.
Maybe he just wanted to tie it, because that's a loose end. Is like, I lent you this car for a month, and now you're moving out of that house. So let's go get
it's
that
been
car
less
back.
than a month. I need the car back.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would be a plot hole if we didn't address it. So,
yeah, I guess so. Do you think Sonny, the ambiguous ending, we can impart our own thoughts on? Do you think he went back to being a whore, or do you think he left this life behind?
Realistically, I think he just went back to it.
I do too.
Like the good, yeah. Otherwise, the movie would have just given us a good ending of him leaving it. I think.
Yeah, I think he went back in. I'm guessing eventually he got AIDS and he died. And that's how the movie really ends. It's
like story. We've said, he gets in his own way at some point, within the movie. He gets disillusioned with how the real world works. It's just as bad as this, even though it's not, but whatever. To him it is. So what's the point? Why bother trying to leave now? So that's his character arc, is that he goes from wanting to get out to just completely embracing it and staying in and reversing with what Carol wants. But then Carol gets out, but doesn't really. She gets into a worse position, and so it reinforces his idea that nothing's better on the outside. Like, there's no escaping this shit life. So,
I mean, that would to me. You think you're escaping it? You're marrying a guy who you used to blow for money, like
right?
I don't know.
who's just going to cast you off at some point, you know?
Yeah, he's probably going to just beat the ever-loving shit out of her.
Yeah, I was going to say it's most likely going to be an abusive relationship given the fact that he was already abusive in the car. Yeah.
Shucking the handkerchief at her.
Nick can say it's left up to the audience, but when you fade to black after fading to white, I think it's very
right after you showing something that didn't happen.
Yeah, it's very clear cut that he went back to that life, and it fades to black because that's the end of his story. Like you said, he goes back to that life, and eventually, I think you're right. It does take his life, whether it's through AIDS or
prison,
drugs,
something.
Drugs,
yeah,
cough syrup.
And then my final question is, out of all the stories in the world, why did Nicolas Cage choose this as his directing debut?
It's because it's taboo, man.
Yeah, I think that's it. Or no one else would want it. You know, it's an interesting story he wanted to tell, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to think, at this point, he'd been in how many movies?
A lot. This was 2002. This came out after adaptation.
Right. So maybe he still had seen nothing like it, aside from, you know, maybe American Gigolo, like you said. I haven't seen that, so I don't know what the story's like. But
it's pretty. I mean, it's kind of similar in a way. But yeah, I do think that this is a unique story. It is very character driven, and I think that's what Cage wanted. That was, he said. For his directorial debut, he wanted something that was very small and very character driven and interesting to him, and this was interesting to him.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think if I wanted a career in directing, this would not be the thing that I would choose.
Yeah.
And maybe he just wanted the challenge of it, and he wanted to see if he could do it.
I think that's it. Like, he doesn't need a career in directing. So
yes, yeah,
you know, do something fun, or what you see, what he saw as fun, you know, or interesting or challenging or whatever, and then you just go back to acting.
Yeah, I mean, right after this, you can look at his acting career. It took off. You know, like we had National Treasure not long after this, and you know, we had Matchstick Men and all those movies. Like he had a really good Lord of War. He had a really good trajectory already going into this, and I think maybe he just wanted to see if he could do it, and then he did it and moved on.
Yeah.